For many of us, we're walking through life and we begin to realize that there are certain things in our lives, habits and mindsets that we have that are carried over from our family, from generations past. And sometimes they're good, but sometimes there's some really not good, some not okay things that are passed down to us. Today on Geek Devotions, we're talking about how you don't have to continue that cycle of these terrible things. And we're talking about Disney's turning red. In case you couldn't tell, this is a red panda. It was a gift. Hello, Devoted Geeks. Welcome to Geek Devotions, a show from Devoted Geeks who are devoted to letting you know that you're loved. I'm Dalton. I'm so glad you hit the play button today. If you're new to our show, we take geek pop culture moments like movies, video games, comic books, and we use them to let you know that you're loved. So if you don't watch past this moment right here, right now, know this. We love you, care about you. There is a plan and a purpose for your life. So we've been doing this format quite a bit lately. Do you guys like this? Do you like this structure, the setup instead of the other way that we've been doing? Let me know, comment down below, because I'm really curious as to what you guys are connecting with. As I said in my intro, we're talking about Turning Red, which is a really interesting film that I actually really enjoyed. I know there's a lot of controversy about it, and there's some things that have been said on Facebook. If you guys want to know my thoughts on some of those things that went through out on Facebook, there's a link in the description down below for you guys to check out the article I wrote. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that today, though. Again, go check out the article. But bottom line is, I enjoyed the movie. It was a lot of fun. If you're unfamiliar with the film, it's about a little girl named Mei Mei who she grows up in a very traditional styled Chinese family, and she discovers something interesting about herself. She turns into a giant panda at times when her emotions get out of control, and it's a kind of it was supposed to be like a blessing on her family years ago when they were in China, but later generations like, hey, we just like this is a curse, we need to get rid of it, and it's been hidden away from her. And as you discover the stories, you walk through it, you find out that Mei Mei is a very interesting young girl because, like most young girls at 13, she's trying to discover who she is, be a woman, and be her own individual, but she lives in a very tight, very controlling household. Her mom is what some would call a helicopter parent, but as Mei Mei's trying to figure out who she is and she's trying to deal with this whole thing, towards the end of the movie, she discovers something very interesting. The reason that her mother is the way that she is, this very controlling, we're going to be super involved and almost embarrassingly so type of individual, it's because her mother herself was that way. Now understand, her mom had some really good reasons to be as involved as she was because she wanted to protect Mei Mei from certain things. But at the same time, she discovered that there was this oppressive, very controlling, very damaging mindset that was taking place in her household. Something passed down to her. In fact, there's a scene where Mei Mei actually sees her mother as a little girl. And we see that not only was she in this situation herself, but there was even further mental anguish put upon her because in her own time frame of trying to break the cycle, of trying to be an independent individual, not be under this kind of controlling mindset, she accidentally hurt her own mother. And just the trauma of that led to even more control and restraint on Mei Mei. And it was kind of a passing of generational control, I guess. It was, I was trying to stray away from using the vocabulary of generational curses, but it kind of falls into that mindset of things being passed down from generation to generation. And the reality is, this is something that takes place. You can pass down to the next generation good things and bad things, curses and blessings. It's a real legitimate thing. Maybe not necessarily in the way that some people think, but they are. And these curses, they're consequences of our own thing. The things that we've been doing today, the things that you instill in your life today, they are passed down in a consequence, good and in bad. The scriptures do talk about God revisiting the iniquities of the father upon the second and third generation down, meaning there are consequences to the things that take place in a person's life and what's passed down to their kids. What takes place, though, is that you have people who, as they grow up in what sometimes are terrible situations, they're experiencing what really is not appropriate, is not godly at all. And they begin to make excuses for it. Like, well, it's just who we are. It's just how my family is. It's just how my ethnic group is. And we begin to make excuses for sin. We begin to make excuses for being violent and angry and drunken. We begin to make excuses for being over-sexual about certain aspects or over-sexualizing people. We begin to make excuses for hurting people. And we begin to make excuses for why we should continue to be hurt ourselves. I've legitimately heard people say that they are just doomed to always be hurt, to always have somebody hurt them and control them and really put them in a terrible place simply because that's what they've grown up with. It's a consequence of things that have been passed down to them. And unknowingly, they raise up and they dislike these things themselves, even to a degree. But they pass it down because they're like, it's just what's happening in our family. I'm here to tell you guys, it doesn't have to be that way. You could be the stopgap for what takes place. Mei in this movie, she became the stopgap. She became the one who says, you know what? Not going to be that. We're not going to live this way. Now, I know some people, they had some issues with some of the rebellious actions that take place. I'll remind you, she really didn't do anything that any other 12-year-old girl wasn't doing back in 2002. At the same time, there are some boundaries. There are some things you have to control. That movie is about coming to a balance of healthy parenting and also, allowing a little bit of freedom for your child. But at the deeper side of it, she discovered something. There were things being passed down, hurtful practices, hurtful mindsets that were being passed down to child, to child, to child. And what happens when Mei realized this, she did a couple things. One, she fought against it, but she confronted it. She confronted it with her family, and she confronted it with her mom, and she actually brought freedom to her mom by confronting it. Now, there's a healthy way of doing that, obviously. Breaking these generational curses, breaking these generational patterns starts with you. You don't have to live in this thing. You don't have to continue to live in these aspects of family and cultural traditions that are legitimately wrong and sinful. Ezekiel chapter 18, 19 through 21. Yet you say, why should not the son suffer the iniquities of the father? When the son has done what is right and just and has been careful to observe all my statutes, he shall surely live. The soul who sins shall die. The son shall not suffer for the iniquity of the father, nor the father suffer the iniquity of the son. The righteousness of the righteous shall be upon himself, and the wickedness of the wicked shall be upon himself. But if the wicked person turns away from his sins that he has committed and keeps all my statutes, he does what is just and right, he shall surely live, he shall not die. There's a lot in that verse that takes place, but the main point is this. You are your own person. You can stop what's taking place in your family and in your culture today by being the change today. You don't have to continue. If you decide today, I'm going to stop this. I'm going to stop being this type of thing. I'm going to stop having this be a part of my family and make a change. You can. And not only can you make the change for your family down the road, you're actually going to be able to make a change in your family that came before you to some degree. I've known some people who have grown up in a victim mentality, a mindset that they're always going to be less than and be a victim. And then when they tried to make changes, when they tried to make steps to become better, to do what God has called them to be, they've gotten flack from individuals. And there's been people who have looked at them and says, well, you're just always going to be the same. You're just going to go back to whatever it was. I want to encourage you in this. The Bible says the exact opposite. John 8:36. So if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. If you legitimately give your life to Christ and you begin to make these changes, again, these aren't easy. This is gonna be overnight changes. Mindsets and habits have to be really worked with. But if you work through these things, guys, you don't have to go back. You don't have to go back to hurtful things. You don't have to go back to sinful patterns. You don't have to go back to damaging practices that are within your family and within your culture. You could be the change today that changes down the road. You don't have to go back. Yes, there will be people in your life who maybe will question your changes if you really have changed. You may even have people in your life who look at you like, you think you're better than us now? Don't let that stop you. Don't let that stop you from growing and becoming who God has called you to be. Don't let those things come into your life and question your identity in Christ. Walk it out, become who God has created you to be. Well, guys, that's our devotion. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you guys are curious about this little red panda here, this is actually a gift from my little sister. She gave it to me a couple years ago after Celeste and I got married. I love pandas. Pandas are a thing for me. There's a story behind it. I'll tell you guys about it later. But they're cute and they're adorable. And the red pandas, they're not the same things as other pandas, but they're pretty adorable little things. Just gonna say that right there. Just like the little girl was adorable. A little bit annoying, a little bit of a brat, but she was still adorable. So question of the day for you guys, if you could turn into any animal, what would it be? Leave a comment down below. Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. I'll remind you guys, if you like today's content, make sure you hit the like button and hit the subscribe subscribe button. Also consider sharing this episode out with other individuals. It helps the channel to grow. And if you'd like to help support Geek Devotions to grow and to do what we do, consider becoming one of our patrons. You can visit our website, geekdevotions.com, and click on our support page where you'll find information about how to become a devoted Patreon geek, or even giving a one-time gift to help us grow, get equipment, and do what we do to create content designed to encourage, inspire, and help people take their next step with God. I want to invite you guys to be part of all of our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And don't forget our Facebook page, group rather, Devoted Geek Life, where we have all kinds of individuals in there who would love to do life with you, talk, laugh, and pray with you. We have a lot of people who just genuinely just love praying for folks. So consider jumping into that Devoted Geek Life Facebook group. Lastly, I remind you guys that we're just a couple weeks away from Anime April, where Celeste and I are going to be basically doing everything about anime. It's going to be fun. All of our devotions are based off anime. Our writing team is queuing up several articles about different things involving anime. It's going to be a lot of fun. Make sure you guys check that out. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, remember, stay devoted. Peace and love.